Right, so welcome back to the third round of the Portugal's Masters 2021. If you haven't checked out the two first rounds, be sure to check out my prior videos. And now we're looking at the third round. I had the black pieces against FIDE Master José Padeiro. Obviously another Portuguese player. These are all Portuguese players that participated in this tournament. So I had the black pieces, and the game started with d4. I have a knight of 6, as I always do. c4, e6. Um, Earlier in my career, I used to go for fianchetto systems, namely the King's Indian, quite a lot. But I later found that to be a little bit too risky. So I switched over to e6, knight c3, bishop e4, then Imzu Indian, e3, castles, knight of 3, c5. So he played a very popular line, cd, ed, d5, castles, and it transposed to an isolated pawn's position, where I had black pieces. Now, I like to play this as white. It's usually a very small edge type of position, where white slowly grinds and tries to get a nagging edge that really never goes away. In that sense, it's very much risk-free for white. And if you've checked out my two first videos, then you know the tournament situation I encounter myself in, which I will not spoil right now. But basically, I was really playing aggro for the win. And yeah, not a very good opening choice. Also, might as well that my opponent was very well prepared for this game, while I only had a couple more moves under my sleeve here. So b6 is the main move because you want to get this guy out. Bishop g5, bishop b7, and knight e5. It's an interesting move. Also, queen e2 is played very often, or a3, but knight e5. And here I started getting way too scared, which was a problem I faced throughout this game quite a lot. I played bishop e7. And now this is a move in variations where this bishop is still back here, and white provokes this move with a3, where you don't want to take because the bishop just takes back, so you end up going back. But here I haven't been provoked at all, and I basically just wasted another full move. And this is where these isolated pawn positions can start to get really good for white, or for the side that has the isolated pawn. Because you see, this pawn in the big picture is a weakness for white, so white needs to get very active and direct play going. And so every move really matters in these types of positions. So I should have played knight bd7, where, well, I didn't really like the structure after knight takes d7. This knight is pinned, so I have to take the queen. And then bishop f6, gf6. And these structures are usually very double-edged. On one hand, it's not a particularly good structure for black. It's quite, the king side is shattered, and it's not a very healthy structure for black. But it is the case that white really doesn't have enough pieces to create play here. This bishop is not doing that much here. This knight also can be taken, for example. This bishop is a really good piece. And black's king is really not that exposed, because I can just go king h8 and rook g8. So I basically greatly overestimated this for white. So this is why I didn't go for it. Also, I should say, after knight bd7, queen e2 is another move, and then variations start with bishop takes c3, pawn c3, rook c8, and so on. But I felt like here white had some pressure, and again, I didn't like this light with knight takes d7. I played bishop e7, and after queen e2, okay, here came the big mistake. The first big mistake, which was knight f to d7. I should have played knight c6, but the story really doesn't end there, because here white has enormous complications, starting with bishop takes e6, a very good move. The point is that if you take knight takes e6, and then if you take that again, which you have to do, comes queen takes e6, and queen takes the bishop. So white would just be winning a pawn there, at the very least. So you'd have to go for, also knight takes d4 is interesting, but you'd have to go probably for knight takes c5, and white does get a small edge, but with very precise calculation, okay, black is surviving. But okay, that's not really a natural move at all. But needless to say, much less natural is knight fd7. But I thought this move concretely maybe worked out because I didn't see a refutation after knight takes f7, which was the thing I was most worried about and the thing my opponent was mostly eyeing. I thought this didn't work for him. Turns out it did because after rook takes, queen takes e6, bishop takes g5, queen f7, king h8. I think we both stopped calculating here, but if you actually dig a little bit deeper, which is something we often have to do in chess, we see a position, we think, okay, this looks good, but what if our opponent has a concrete way to actually gain advantage? And funny enough, okay, I have 2 pieces for the rook, so that should be good. And I didn't see how he mates me, and he doesn't. But actually, after just normal moves, rook fe1, knight c6, rook ad1, very simple, and at the same time, the terrible question that black is facing is what does he do? What does black do in this position? And it turns out black really doesn't have a move. You see, all the pieces are tied to each other. This queen has to defend the knight. The knight cannot move because the bishop drops. And white just has, d5, knight d5, knight b5, knight d6. This is just a crushing advantage for white. And it's not even a knockout punch. It's just that black doesn't have counterplay. And if you don't have counterplay, 99.99% of the times, you're lost. Or, at least much worse. So, we both missed this. My opponent played bishop f4. Also, I was starting to run low on the clock. I had like in comparison to him. So he had like an hour and a half here, and I had maybe 40 minutes. That shows really how unsure I was of my position. I only really have one good move here, which is to take on e5. It's not even that good for me, but it's the only move I have. This queen d4, yeah, it's quite necessary, so I'm getting example in this. And I have to get my pieces out very quickly. You see, I'm completely underdeveloped. He's got a spatial advantage. I have to be very quick in the position. I played rook c8, a slight inaccuracy. Okay, knight c6 was slightly better. But rook c8 doesn't really ruin the game. Bishop d3, knight c6, rook ad1, queen c5. All of these are basically forced moves. Here he was starting to take with check and then take my queen. So queen c5, knight e4, and knight d4 is a very good move. Only move. Because I'm threatening his queen, and I free up space for my queen to drop back. So after queen g4, I go queen c6, and he goes f3. Slightly inaccuracy, a slightly dubious move. Bishop f4 would have been a bit better. So the queen is defending this, and also there's that idea of bishop h6. But I thought this was the most natural move for him, and so did he. Here I played knight f5, and you can see my position has somewhat stabilized. I'm still worse, not to say much worse, because you see he's got all these pieces attacking my king. He's got this pawn, which I believe I've talked about in other games. This pawn is always such a grip in black's position, creating all these sacrificial ideas, and it's a hard position for black to play. He went knight f6 check, and one move is good here, the other isn't. I played bishop takes f6, which, as you can see by the lovely red question marks, is a very bad move. The move here was king h8. And the problem with this is that you have to sacrifice your queen. So you have to see quite a little bit far ahead here. After bishop e4, there's a skewer here, so you have to go queen c5 check. And after bishop f2, you don't have time to defend everything, because there's mating threads, this is hanging, this is hanging. So you would have to take on e4 here, which is a very good move. Very precise move. After bishop c5 check, king h1, can go bishop c2. And the line goes on, but the computer actually finds this to be reasonable for black. White is, has an advantage, but you can see black's pieces are really shining all of a sudden. And the king is, without all the bishops, the king is really not that unsafe. Also, there's some pieces, there's some problems. Okay, it's on the verge of decent for black. Still not something I would be, very much proud to go for at all. So bishop takes f6, ef, g6. And I thought I could hold this, I thought I could hold this because I've always got this check. Well, the problem with this pawn, I should say, is that white always has ideas of queen h3 or queen somewhere, trading off this knight, going queen h6 and mate. Very straightforward idea. Very difficult to parry. I thought I always had this move queen c5 check, queen f8. And I thought, okay, I have this covered. Turns out bishop e4, which he played, is a very good move. It's a very good move because after queen c5 check, bishop f2, I went queen c7 because I have to defend this bishop. And after now he trades, so a very precise sequence of moves. Because here the bishop covers this, so the queen cannot go somewhere and defend the bishop. So it has to give a check first to force this bishop here, so the queen can go back. But now he trades and goes queen g5, and he's threatening mating 2. So what's the difference? Why did he go for this bishop e4 a little tickle first? Well, if he goes bishop takes f5 immediately, there could be queen c5 check and queen takes f5. Or even pawn takes and then queen check and queen f8. So with this, he puts his bishop on f2, so there's no checks now. So I have to take the pawn, and now queen g5, and it's losing. It's dead lost for black here. I went king h8, rook d4, queen c6, rook h4, and I just resigned the game. To my disgrace. That's a little bit exaggerated. But I did resign the game here. And yeah, now I can spoil it. I started the tournament 0 out of 3. So a very, very bad start to a tournament. I'm not sure if I've ever started a tournament with 0 points out of 3 games. Probably not. I had started 0 out of 2 before, but 0 out of 3, probably not. Well, I'll also tell you in advance that I did not end the tournament. I did not finish the tournament with 0 points. So that's always something good. So stay tuned for the next videos to find out how many points I actually scored. It wasn't that disastrous in the end. So yeah, be sure to stick around, and I'll see you guys soon with another video. Peace out.